to do this and bring all this expertise and talent back at home, it's a dream come true for me. My name is Tahir Johnson. I'm born and raised here in Ewing Township, New Jersey, third generation. My mom grew up here, graduated from high school here.
My parents actually were the first African Americans on our street in 1954. My mother, for over 30 years she worked at General Motors. And when GM left, that really made a major impact. The town really changed.
Where my shop will be located is right there on the block where General Motors was, where my grandmother retired from. I've been a long-time cannabis lover, for lack of a better word. I was arrested for cannabis on 3 separate occasions, and the cops said that I looked like a drug dealer, and they ended up searching my car. I had a small amount of cannabis. I had about a dime bag of weed.
I would tell my children, especially when they became teenagers, to be careful driving while black.
And many times they got stopped and arrested by the police. They never even told us, So now I'm hearing that they might have gotten stopped 75 to 100 times each, just from being in a certain neighborhood or walking down the street.
And for me, as somebody who's had a previous cannabis charge, I qualify for social equity. I'm also a minority-owned business in my hometown as an impact zone.
My name is Bert Steinman. I am the mayor of Ewing Township. Quite frankly, I didn't know much about the cannabis business at all. I was very reluctant at first. Never smoked it in my life or tried it at all. I know a lot of people say that, but it is true.
It's new to everybody, and it's ever evolving. They're still viewing it through that old lens of, the devil's cabbage.
More deadly is the menace of marijuana.
When it became a referendum for the state, 73% of my population, the people of Ewing, really wanted it. So at that point, it just became a no-brainer.
We were very much engaged in that conversation and trying to figure out how do we ensure that folks get a fair shot.
We do want to look for individuals that kind of had a rough start in life and had to have an opportunity to turn that all around, and to here certainly fits that. That's really what this is aimed at, for social equity and justice.
But social equity is really about making sure that there is a level playing field and acknowledging where in the past it hasn't been so.
African Americans are 4 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis, and we have an industry now that did $26 billion in sales last year. So I think that it's important to try to create opportunities for people of color who've been the most impacted by the war on drugs. So I've actually had all of my cannabis charges expunged.
Expungement is a critical, important piece of legalization and giving people back their dignity.
But it's such a tough process to navigate. Like, they give you this thick packet, and it's kind of like figure it out.
Let's fix those social issues. Let's put people back in their homes, put people back in society so they can contribute in the way they've always wanted to.
So I get to take something that's been a source of pain for my family to actually be something that can be a source of profit. My mom and I actually went and took a tour of Columbia Care's New Jersey cultivation facility.
I could not believe, what I was seeing.
Growing and manufacturing, packaging, everything is done within these 4 walls right now.
Thousands and thousands of beautiful plants, things that people would have been locked up for. Here we have, the facility was amazing.
All right, so this is the small indoor veg room. So in New Jersey, everything comes in from seeds. They sit in here until a good root structure is formed, and then they get potted into a 1-gallon pot. Everything then gets moved into our bloom rooms.
It was just really interesting in just seeing the growth process.
All the plants will live in here for about 8 weeks. So now you can start getting a lot of the aromatics coming out now as the plants get a little bit older in their life. So this room here is the large space of veg. Total square footage out here in terms of bloom is about 10,000. And then it looks like that's probably our next harvest back here. You can really see it starting to dry down. So you can just see the difference in all the plants there. So it's a perpetual harvest. Every week you're harvesting right around 100 plants up front, and then the back's about 400 to 500 plants. So I started in Columbia Care September of 2019. I was operations manager for an Anheuser-Busch wholesaler in Delaware for Bud the Buds, so I never would have thought.
I grew up in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and 80s, and I've seen the transition of the drug.
Just a young boy, Under the influence of the drug, he killed his entire family with an axe.
I remember when it first happened, when Nancy Reagan...
Just say no.
I never thought I would live to see this day. I saw a black president. Now I'm seeing the legalization of marijuana.
Congress has stood by for too long as communities of color in particular were torn apart.
H.R. 3617 doesn't just federally deschedule marijuana. It incentivizes marijuana use and distribution, and it's reckless in its approach.
It is long past time for the federal government to recognize that this experiment in legalization has been a resounding success.
I think federal legalization has its benefits and its challenges. There's been some good legislation at the federal level.
And even the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act that my home Senator Cory Booker has advanced, the MORE Act that just recently passed the House.
The Safe Banking Act has passed a number of times as well on the House side.
The challenge that people have with access to capital, not being able to have a bank, just makes it that much more difficult.
At any given time, I mean, you can have a, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month electric bill. The startup costs and the cost that it takes to just run is just unbelievable.
The last thing we want is a plantation-based economy where you can participate, but you have to be a worker.
Each state is a laboratory of democracy, where little by little we're learning from each other and the mistakes and successes that we've had there.
I've been watching them in this process for the last 4 years. So this is like a miracle to see my son on the front foot of this revolution.
I'm super proud.
But even being in this same very building, when I walked in, knowing I was doing this interview, it was touching because, again, anytime where I've been here before, it would have been downstairs where the courthouse is, and now I'm upstairs doing an interview for the same thing that, growing up would have been, very different.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.